Well, good evening and welcome to this candidate forum hosted by the Johnson County Post, featuring candidates vying for Johnson County Sheriff. This is the first of two forums tonight. Of course, after this will be District Attorney. We'll give the two candidates up here a chance to introduce themselves shortly. But first, my name is Kyle Palmer. I'm the editor of the Johnson County Post, and I'm honored to be the moderator for this last night of forums, the last of 8 nights that we have hosted over the last month. The smiles on my staff's face at the back of the room, very, very palpable right now. We consider events like this our specialty. We've hosted such forums nearly every year since the Post's founding almost 15 years ago in one guise or another. They allow our readers and residents of Johnson County direct access to the people who would hold elected office and govern your communities. And the Post prides itself on giving you fact-based, informative coverage of your local communities that you can't find anywhere else. And local elections, we feel, are a perfect time to demonstrate that service. If you are a subscriber to the Post, I want to thank you. It's your support that allows us to put on events like this and pay for staff to stay after hours and all the equipment we use. Most of our revenue indeed comes from our more than 7,500 paying subscribers. If you do not currently subscribe but want to check us out and consider joining our growing community, go to johnsoncountypost.com and see what we're all about. Big thanks to Johnson County Library, who has co-sponsored all 8 nights of forums that we've done this election cycle, this last one at Central Resource Library in Overland Park. They did the very same thing last year, and we want to give a special thanks to Ashley Fick, the coordinator at the library that we work with. She has been here every night as well, helping us set up and coordinate and find locations that work for us. So we want to thank her most directly. And of course, we're doing all this ahead of early voting starting on Saturday, October 19th. So we want to thank the folks at the library as well for being a host site for many polling places as well going into election season. We are also live streaming this event tonight on the Post Facebook page, as we plan to do or have done with the other forums that we have done so far over the last month. This forum will be posted on our Facebook page. You can go back and watch it, or people who are not here, they can watch it later at any point between now and November 5th. And of course, I want to thank the candidates for being here tonight. It's a busy time of year and busy chapter in your lives. Running for office is time-consuming and labor-intensive, and you are seeking a position that will directly impact our readers and clearly has much interest in the Johnson County community. And we appreciate you giving some of your time tonight to let these people know where you stand on the issues affecting this race. Well, let's briefly lay out the format for this forum, giving the candidates a chance to introduce themselves. This forum features the 2 candidates vying for Johnson County Sheriff, as I said. For tonight's forum, each candidate will be given 1 minute to make a brief opening statement and introduce themselves. Following that, we'll then ask a series of questions based in part on reader input. I do have some scripted questions that are based on various emails we've gotten over the past couple of months asking readers for their feedback. But also, you may notice Leah's already collecting questions that are on the index cards that you may have found on your seat. If you have a burning question you would like to ask, you can let her know, or Lucy Chrisman is over here on this side. So we have various staff members. Just raise your index card and they will come find you. They'll pass those up to me. If I see questions that have kind of a similar theme, I'll try to ask it. Or if there's a question that maybe sticks out from another issue that has not been asked, I might also ask that one as well. So we do want some audience participation too. I will say if the candidate mentions the opponent by name in their response, or it's clear they're referencing the other candidate, we may give that other candidate a chance for a 30-second rebuttal. That's done as a courtesy. Of course, there are only 2 candidates here, so we will get through plenty of issues, but if there is a chance for a rebuttal, I will make sure to give that. Again, for the candidates, Leah is also timekeeping tonight, so I think she will settle into one place eventually, but she'll be walking around the room too. But she will hold up a yellow card for a 30-second warning and a red card meaning your time is up. That just is done as a courtesy. We don't cut your microphone, but just make sure that allows you to wrap up your thoughts. Also, Juliana Garcia is working the camera tonight. Kaylee McLaughlin is monitoring the live stream. I mentioned Lucy Chrisman. Andrew Gogg is here as well. It's a full staff party tonight, so I want to thank them for their help. Also, just a note about audience decorum, both for this and the next forum. We have candidates up here representing different views on some high-profile issues that in some cases I imagine have the potential to be engender strong emotions. We have a lot of people in the crowd tonight who care very deeply about this race, so please respect these candidates' time, their willingness to share their stances in a public forum. With that being said, we'll ask the audience members try to refrain from speaking over candidates or having audible outbursts in the crowd, showing signs, or doing other things that might distract candidates while they're up here. I want to make it a safe and productive space both for audience members and candidates as well. Well, all that aside, let's jump right into this. And so before I began speaking, we flipped a coin, and so Byron won but deferred to Doug. So Doug's going to go first on opening statements, and I will say Byron will go first on closing statements, and so that's the order. We'll flip-flop back and forth when we get to questions, so you're all going to get plenty of chances to go first. But the first opening statement falls to Doug Bedford. You'll each get 1 minute to introduce yourselves. And so let's begin with opening statements, starting with Doug Bedford.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Doug Bedford. I'm a candidate for sheriff here in Johnson County. I want to thank everyone for coming out. This is a very, very important race here in Johnson County. The sheriff's office and the sheriff, they have jurisdiction over the entire county. You start getting into certain areas in Johnson County, people don't even know that we have a sheriff's office. They don't even know that's part of the ballot. So seeing all of you here, that's very refreshing. A little bit about me, I grew up in Johnson County. I'm from here. My wife, she's in the front row. We've been married for 28 years. We have 2 kids, both graduated from Kansas State University. I have 29 years law enforcement experience, 26 of that at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. I was the undersheriff, the number 2 person for 4.5 years. I was also in the military for 8 years, active duty as a United States Navy SEAL with 3 overseas deployments. What I'm going to bring is trust, teamwork, and transparency back to the Sheriff's Office so we can work together with city agencies and make Johnson County safer.
We'll give the next opening statement to Byron Roberson. Byron, if you want to go now.
Hello there. Thank you for having us here tonight. I am Byron Roberson. I am the current Chief of Police of the Prairie Village Police Department. I'm also a proud veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, serving in Desert Storm. I am the current Vice President for the Johnson County Chiefs and Sheriffs Association. I sit on several different boards, but 2 of significance is the Johnson County Criminal Justice Advisory Council. I sit on that board. I also sit on the Safe Home Domestic Violence Board. I am also a proud graduate of the FBI National Academy. It is a senior leadership course that senior command staff go to. I am a graduate of Jackson State University with a bachelor's in science, and I am a graduate of the University of Central Missouri with a master's in criminal justice. I believe that I am the right one to be able to bring new change and good leadership to the Johnson County Sheriff's Office.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, both for your opening statements. Let's dive into some questions. I already have some excellent questions from the audience up here. It's just the 2 of you, so we're going to get a chance to get through a lot of issues over the next 30 to 40 minutes, if not a little bit longer, before we start the DA forum at 7. So the order will flop now to Byron Roberson to begin this next question. We did receive this question before our primary forum, but it's worth revisiting now that we have a general election contest. That reader at that time asked, what is the #1 public safety issue in Johnson County for you, and how would you address this issue if elected? You'll each get 60 seconds to respond to this. So the biggest public safety issue in your estimation, Byron Roberson.
So the #1 problem that is going on in Johnson County, because I am a current police chief, I see this every day. We have rampant crime that is going on, especially property crime. Our violent crime numbers are going down. We've been doing really good of keeping those numbers pretty low. But our violent crime has gone up, and our violent crime, if not addressed, attributes to violent crime eventually. So what I plan on doing is I plan on using our resources for the Johnson County Sheriff's Office to help those agencies that are especially short manpower, especially on the northeast end of Johnson County. The car thieves, the burglars, all of those things contribute to the community not feeling safe. That is something that the Johnson County Sheriff's Office can assist those agencies to do a better job of putting those criminals in jail.
The The question now over to Doug Bedford. What is the number one public safety issue in Johnson County in your estimation? 60 seconds.
I think one of the biggest issues that we have to face is the drug problem, the narcotics problem. I think everything starts with drugs. What you're going to do is have the small crimes. They're going to be going to your neighborhoods. They're going to be checking your car doors. They're going to try to look for that crime of opportunity. While I was the undersheriff, we created the Northeast Kansas Drug Task Force. There's 17 police agencies in Johnson County, and only one participates in the drug task force, and that's Shawnee PD. What we need to do is have more collaboration with the city agencies. If we all come together, we can then work on the drug issues, and I think a lot of the other crimes are then going to dissolve also in that regard. One of the things that I also want to implement is an old program. It's called the T100. That was the radio frequency. That's where the sheriff's office can transport inmates or arrestees from Prairie Village, from Leawood, from Overland Park, transport them to the jail. That way, the officers from those agencies, if the arrestee can be transported, they can immediately get back on the streets in their cities.
Byron, you alluded specifically to the difference between violent and property crime. Doug, you talked about drug crimes, and that obviously can affect other types of crime, but we do have a question from the audience, so I'll ask it now. Kind of hits upon this. It says, describe your philosophy about the difference between protecting people and protecting property. What is the difference you see? This one falls to Doug first, 60 seconds.
People is where it starts. You have to protect the citizens of Johnson County. That's what I will do as the sheriff, and that's what every law enforcement agency in Johnson County should strive to do. In doing that, in protecting people by, again, if we have the T100 unit, we can get officers in the city agencies back on their city streets faster and quicker after they've made an arrest. The sheriff's office can be there for anything that they need to do. It comes down to staffing like it does with any agency. But if the sheriff's office is contacted and if a city agency, if Prairie Village calls and says, hey, we have this taking place, we have rampant crime taking place, the sheriff's office can send units there to assist. That's what the sheriff's office does. There's more than 500 sworn officers at the sheriff's office to assist city agencies. One of the areas they could do that is the drug task force. They could look, they could go to these areas, and they could stop the crime that's taking place.
Question over to Byron Roberson from the audience. Describe your philosophy about the difference between protecting people and protecting property.
Well, absolutely, the protection of people has to come first. But that is done, as Prairie Village Police Chief, we work with the community. We have an open line of communication. So we also make sure that our officers are out there giving them the information about what is going on. We're very active on our social media, so we're making sure that people know when there's crimes going on that they could be subjected to. Also, we make sure that there's open lines of communication from the citizens to the people that are on the ground. We make sure that our officers are out there. They're targeting the areas that they need to be. We use our data analysis to make sure that they are put in the right place. Technology. We also spend a lot of money on technology, making sure that those cameras and traffic cameras and license plate readers are being used to the best of their ability to put officers in the place where these crimes are happening.
Another question from the audience mirrors a question I was going to ask about budget and spending, but it kind of fits along the same theme. We're talking about how you decide to deploy resources. What crimes do you want to prioritize fighting? We do have a question from the audience. How have you reduced the crime rate, and how do you determine what crimes to focus budget dollars on? So maybe focus on the second half of that question. How will you make budgetary decisions based on the types of crimes you want to prioritize? This starts with Byron first, 60 seconds.
Yes, in Prairie Village, we spend a lot of time and money on just that, on trying to fight crime and trying to figure out ways in which we can do it better. Last year, I obtained the largest law enforcement infrastructure grant anywhere in Johnson County, $635,000 that I got from the federal government to put in license plate readers and traffic cameras at every intersection. This would have took us 10 years to complete, but we did it in 1 year. It does two things. It saves the taxpayers money, and it also catches criminals. Every day, we are getting notified of people that are being caught with these apparatus that we have in our city. When a person comes through the city and they have a warrant or they have a stolen car, it automatically sends a notification to every officer that someone just came across 75 and state line. It gives a picture of the vehicle, and they're able to direct their resources to catch the bad guys.
Question coming over to Doug Bedford, same one. How will you determine what crimes to focus budget dollars on? Also, I guess as a former member of the Sheriff's Department, they also ask, how have you reduced the crime rate in your particular roles in the past? But how would you determine what crimes to focus your budget dollars on?
Well, again, one of the biggest things you have to look at is citizen safety. And that's what we want to do, and we want to do that as a group. The best thing that you can do if you are fighting any crime is to work in a collaboration and work in a teamwork. I was a former Navy SEAL. I mentioned that earlier. It comes down to teamwork. You have to be willing to sit at the table. You have to get everybody working together. If that's county government, if it's city police agencies, whatever the case. Again, the sheriff's office has a special operations command center that was opened up while I was there as the undersheriff, and now it's been enhanced even more so since after I retired. What they have there is they're able to view cameras that are throughout the county. They're able to review the data that's coming in from license plate readers that my opponent mentioned earlier. What you have to do, though, is make sure that that information is used. Make sure the information just doesn't go into a database and that it's forgotten. Ultimately, what that's going to come down to is everybody working together on a single goal, which is stopping crime in Johnson County.
One reader wrote before this via email, being a good steward of taxpayer money is very important. According to public records, again, this is the emailer writing, the budget for the Sheriff's Office since 2017 has increased by approximately $45 million. If elected, do you anticipate maintaining that level of spending? What will you do to ensure residents that you are running the Sheriff's Office in the most efficient manner possible while still being effective in carrying out some of the crime-fighting operations that both of you have mentioned? So a broader budgetary question. We'll start with Doug Bedford first, 60 seconds.
Public safety is one of the most important aspects of any government budget. It doesn't matter what agency. If you're talking about county government, if you're talking about a city government, public safety is going to be one of the biggest things that we have to look at. What we have to do is at the Sheriff's Office is conduct a staffing analysis. Make sure that everybody is in the right place where they need to be. Regarding overtime, a cost analysis we could do there, look at the non-statutory functions that are being done at the Sheriff's Office. Some things that are done at the Sheriff's Office are mandated by Kansas state statute. The things that aren't mandated, maybe we could reduce them, maybe we could move some personnel around, but ultimately what it comes down to with the budget, you also have to look at, there's not 100 people lining up for one position to be a law enforcement officer anymore. And so what has to happen is the budget, the salaries are going to go up. And what we need to do at the Sheriff's Office is continue to look at those budgets, do the staffing analysis, and have the constraints with anything that we need.
Same question over to Byron Roberson. Again, the reader pointing out that the Sheriff's Office budget has grown in recent years. If elected, do you anticipate maintaining that level of spending? What will you do to ensure residents that you're running the Sheriff's Office in the most efficient manner possible? 60 seconds.
Well, at Prairie Village, I have been in charge of the budget for the last 4 years. I've been under budget every year. I give money back to the city every year because we are efficiently using those funds that we are given. And that means that it's back to taxpayers' pockets. The budget is made up like a pie, like a cake. It has a couple pieces to it. The piece that you have that doesn't change much is personnel. Personnel cost is going to be what it's going to be. You have to make sure that you're keeping your personnel competitively paid, their benefits are good, and that they are competitive amongst their other peers in the county. That's one piece that really doesn't change. Once you set that kind of just moves by itself. The other part is the infrastructure, bullets, bandages, and clothes, and equipment, vehicles, things like that. Those things you can sometimes change. You can sometimes reduce some of those costs by using different things like EV cars and other vehicles that are able to be, we're able to save some cost savings that way.
We have a lot of questions about staffing and recruitment from the audience, and so let's move on to that topic. This question will start with Byron. The Sheriff's Office has dealt with the challenge of trying to fill dozens of vacant positions and also retain staff. In 2022, for instance, the County Commission approved a budget increase for the Sheriff's Office that boosted hourly pay for deputies in an attempt to attract more applicants. In that year, the staff turnover rate not counting retirements, was 15%, which was above the target of 11% set that year. That's just an example. To deal with these shortfalls in recent years, the Sheriff's Office has had to pay current staff overtime. At least one of you has mentioned that or alluded to it. So several readers, both in the room and then also emailing us before this forum, say they want to know what your plans are to adequately pay the Sheriff's Department, pay Sheriff's Office employees competitive salaries. And we'll start with Byron Roberson first. 60 seconds.
So pay is very important. Like I was talking about with creating the budget. You have personnel costs, then you have also infrastructure and capital improvements. Then you also have ways in which you can increase money into the budget by applying for grants and things like that. But the personnel costs are important. What you have to understand is you have to make sure that they are being paid competitive. They are being paid competitive, sometimes not just comparing what other agencies are paying, but also comparing to what the outside commerce is paying. We lose people to Garmin. We lose people to Honeywell. We have to compete with those places that we normally wouldn't have compete for in the past. So that is something that we have to continue to do. You have to make sure that their benefits are good. You have to make sure that the people know that they are valued. You have to keep them on track also. That's the reason why the budget has gone up so much, is because over the last several years, they have not given the Sheriff's Department employees the raises that they need to stay competitive. That's why you have to do it so much at the end.
Doug Bedford, people want to know your plans for adequately staffing the Sheriff's Department and paying Sheriff's Office employees competitive salaries.
While I was there as the undersheriff, I sat through those meetings. We had a $90 million budget. I sat through the meetings on the budget, so I've had those discussions with the fiscal division at the Sheriff's Office and then also the county budget office and the Board of County Commission regarding that. So with over 700 employees, 83% of the Sheriff's Office budget is actually for staffing. What we need to look at, the numbers, as was mentioned a few minutes ago, the numbers of the vacancies at the Sheriff's Office, they were a little bit higher. Right now, the numbers are, there's 15 open deputy positions at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. They currently now have an attrition rate of less than 5%. And the reason why is because of the significant pay raise that happened in 2023. That's what you have to do. Pay the comparative or the competitive salaries so you don't lose your employees. It's my understanding that they're looking at hiring another big group. Possibly by the end of the year, there will be 0 vacancies at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. I will continue to work to have those competitive salaries so that we're strong in the market.
We have several questions from the audience regarding staffing, staff development, so we're going to ping pong back and forth on these. We'll start with Doug first. Question from the audience: what is your experience with providing professional development for your colleagues, and how is that important for creating future leaders within the department? So your experience leading professional development and what that was, Doug. 60 seconds.
Well, it's very important. You typically want your leader to come from within. That's where your supervisors are going to come from. If you have a sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major at the agency, you're going to bring them up and hopefully groom them, teach them what it needs to be to lead people. At the Sheriff's Office, there are a number of different things that they can do. They have leadership programs. Anyone that is aspiring to be a leader, they can attend these leadership programs. And so what that does is that puts them in these roles. They have a capstone project when they're in there, and what that will do is they can then go in and say, hey, this is a project that we worked on as a group, and they can work on those leadership positions. That can also be there's 12 different divisions at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, and of those 12 different divisions, you are going to have the lead, so to speak, in each unit. If you are a training officer, all you're going to be doing is kind of grooming, or you are working on those leadership skills that'll enhance your career as you go on.
Same question to Byron Roberson. Your experience providing professional development for your colleagues. 60 seconds.
So training is extremely important in the Prairie Village Police Department. We encourage our officers to seek out, and we also have a professional development sergeant that gives them training that they may want. We put them in their career goals. If you want to be a dare officer, we send you to things that are going to move towards that. If you want to be a patrol officer that's interdiction for drugs, we'll send you to training for that. Development is key. If you don't give people development, they will be stagnant, and they will soon want to leave and go somewhere else because they don't have the ability to have that training. The Johnson County Sheriff's Office does not train outside of its own agency. We train everywhere, all over the United States. They do most all of their training is done in-house, so it's the only perspective of the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, not the perspective of other professionals outside of the business. We send people all the way to Northwestern University. We send them to the FBI National Academy. We send them to other perspectives. You have to have that.
A couple of questions alluding to staff morale. This will start with Byron. One questioner asks, what will you do to inspire Sheriff's Office staff? Another person asks, what will you do in the first 90 days to influence the Sheriff's Department? So maybe take both of those in turn, but 60 seconds talk about inspiring staff, motivating them, especially at the beginning after you're elected.
So to inspire the people in the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, you have to do one thing first. You have to tell them what you need them to do. The problem with the Johnson County Sheriff's Office is that they've had leaders for the last 8 years that has not told them the plan. They had no plan. They had no direction. They were like a ship that left port and didn't know where they were going. They didn't have a person at the helm that was telling him, this is where we're going to go. This is where I want this agency to be. So that is first and foremost what you have to do as a leader. You have to communicate your vision to everyone all the way down to the lowest level. That's the way you can create a professional organization that can grow.
The same question over to Doug Bedford. Again, kind of a two-parter, but what will you do to inspire the Sheriff's Office? What does your first 90 days look like doing that and influencing your department?
Well, one of the first things that I want to do is talk to as many people as I can. They have to know what my leadership is going to be like. So many of them know me anyway. Again, I was there for 26 years. I was a former undersheriff. I have an unbelievable working relationship with deputies all the way up through the rank of major. Let me emphasize, the Sheriff's Office is not broken. The men and women at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office do an amazing job. Again, whenever I come in as the leader, then that's what we are going to do, is change the direction that we're going to go through leadership. One of the first things I'm going to do, empower the supervisors. If you are a supervisor and you are empowered to make a decision, empower the deputies. If you're a deputy and you can make a decision, that will give people buy-in. They will have a vested interest in anything that they do if they know that, hey, I can make a decision and I'm not going to get yelled at for making that decision. That's going to take time, and it may take more than 90 days. But once you change that mindset where people have a good working environment where they can make decisions, you're going to have a successful organization.
Continuing along this theme, we'll start with Doug on this question from the audience. How important is diversity in the workforce, and how would you improve or discourage it? That's this audience member's question. So we'll start with Doug here. Diversity in the Sheriff's Office's workforce, 60 seconds.
I think it's very important. It's very important in any environment. It doesn't matter if you're talking the Sheriff's Office, if you're talking a business structure, whatever the case may be. What you need to have is community involvement. If you have a group of people from the community, an enhancement group where you can meet with them not just once a year, you want to meet with them at least once a month, if not more so, and ask them, hey, what do we need to do for the diversity within our organization? There is a lot of minorities at the Sheriff's Office right now, but it's unfortunate that that's even a topic of discussion. We should just say, hey, you know what, we're hiring the best people, and we have everybody at this organization, period. And that's what it's going to come down to. If you work with the community and you then say, hey, what can we do to hire more minorities, to get involved? And that's going to be a number of different programs that we can do. But if you make that happen through a community policing unit, all that will do is enhance the agency and enhance recruitment.
Same question to Byron Roberson. How important is diversity in the workforce, and how would you improve or discourage it, in the words of this audience member?
Diversity is extremely important. It is important because you can't have a top-notch professional organization without diversity in your workforce. But you can't depend on that it's going to happen because you have a policy on it. You can't depend on it that it's going to happen because you told your people that that's what you want. You have to be diligent. You have to go out and find those people. Minorities, and especially women, you have to go out and find those people and recruit them. If you don't, they will not come, because law enforcement as a whole is generally white males that have dominated that workforce. So a lot of people do not feel comfortable. They do not feel that they will be welcomed. You have to go out and make sure that they know that this is an environment that you will be welcome, because we cannot be the best professional organization unless we have diversity in the workforce.
And the last question regarding staffing, before we move on to other topics, this again from the audience as well. What is your process for vetting applicants for positions with the office? Are there any red flags that you would look for that would exclude an appointment? So we talked a lot about needing to expand the workforce, needing to find more and recruit more sheriff's office workers, but this questioner takes it from a different angle. Is there anything that would raise your red flags to the point where you would not want to hire somebody? What would be your process for vetting applicants? We'll start with Byron Roberson, 60 seconds.
We are very diligent in who we hire at the Prairie Village Police Department. I do have the luxury that I get to talk to every single one of them. I talk to every single person that is hired with my police department. We also have a very diligent way of going about making sure that we have the right people. When a person comes into the Prairie Village Police Department, they sit down with an investigator and they turn over, they ask for their social media, and then they ask them, we want you to open up your social media. We're doing that because, not because we're trying to pry into their personal life, but we want to see what kind of person they were before they came and wanted to be a police officer. A lot of people have lives on the outside that come out in their social media. That's one way. But we also make sure that we are going to talk to their neighbors. We're going to talk to their friends. We're going to talk to their coworkers. We want to make sure that you are a good human being and that you are going to treat people like human beings. That is the most important thing that you can do to get police officers.
And again, the final question here regarding staffing, it goes back to Doug Bedford. What is your process for vetting applicants? Are there any red flags that would make you exclude an applicant?
Well, the personnel division at the sheriff's office does an amazing job. And what they will do is then look at an applicant, and there are quite a few, and this is civilian and sworn. They will look at the applicant, and then they will go through that. They're going to, there's a polygraph test that's given. There's a psychological exam, a physical fitness exam, a background check. They're going to talk to your neighbors. They want to find out who this person is, what they've done, where he or she have been throughout their life. There's been a change. A few years ago, they made a change in the narcotics because, for lack of better terms, you have to keep up with the times. If somebody, back whenever I started my law enforcement career in 1987, if you had smoked marijuana, then your career was done. You had no chance. And now that has been changed, and it's been modified. And so the personnel division would come, whenever I was there as the undersheriff, they would come and say, hey, look, we're thinking about modifying it because this is what other agencies across the nation are doing. You have to be willing to change. If you're willing to change, you will then find the good applicants, and you are going to be able to get the great employees.
Moving on to another topic, we've gotten several comments from readers. They're all along the same lines. So I'll move on to this topic now, and we'll start with Doug Bedford. The order falls to you. A reader did send us this email, quote, firearms are now the leading cause of death for children and teens in America. This, again, reader talking as the mother of a young daughter, this issue is very important to me, as it is to many other parents in Johnson County. If elected sheriff, what policies will you enact or support within the confines of your office to help curb gun violence in our community and ensure the safety of all our children? I will also note we've gotten several comments from the audience asking about your position on what they refer to as common sense gun control, whether you have a stance on that or not, or agree with that framing of the issue. But again, the way this reader phrased it, what policies will you enact or support within the confines of your office to help curb gun violence in our community and ensure the safety of children? We'll start with Doug Bedford first, 60 seconds.
Yeah, one of the biggest things you have to do is with education. If you're talking gun safety, if you're talking narcotics use or drug use, and it starts at a young age, and you have to talk about the education with the kids. And that's what I would want to do. I want to send people into as many schools as we can in Johnson County to say, hey, look, these are the worries, these are the concerns, these are the safety factors you need to have with drugs, with guns, with things like that. Another aspect that we have is educating the parents too, because they need to make sure that they put their weapons away. They make sure that everything is locked up safe, because that's typically how it will happen. Mom or dad, brother, whatever the case, left their firearm out, and then that's when tragedy struck. We can also then work with the government. You can get gun locks. We will issue those to, or not even issue them, we will give them to people. And so then that way, and again, it would just come down to talking to people, having classes. The sheriff's office currently does that. They have gun safety classes, anything they can do to help the citizens and educate the citizens of Johnson County.
Byron Roberson, the same question to you, again from a reader who emailed. If elected sheriff, what policies will you enact or support within the confines of your office to help curb gun violence in our community and ensure the safety of all children?
So I am the only candidate here that is endorsed by Moms Demand Action for a gun sense candidate, because I support the initiatives that they are doing, especially in Topeka and also in DC. It is not to take guns away. I am a gun owner. I am a military person, so I'm not against guns, but I am against guns being possessed by people that shouldn't possess them. I am against people who have guns that leave them unlocked and leave them to be obtained by a young person. That is why we have the problem that we do, is because we don't have any rules with our guns. We have to make sure that we are supporting organizations like Mom Demand Action, like I did last year. I gave Senate testimony in Topeka against a bill that was going to handcuff police departments to enforce federal gun laws. We have to support things like that in legislation.
I will just allow Doug a chance, maybe 30 seconds, to respond to the particular notion about the endorsement of Mom's Demand, how that redounds to you.
Well, one of the things, I'm a lifetime member of the NRA. I'm again, a former Navy SEAL. I've been in in law enforcement for 29 years. I am very pro Second Amendment, and what it comes down to is education. I have a number of guns at my house. I have them locked up safely in my house. I would hope that other people are doing the same. That isn't always the case, which is probably why we even got this question. And so it comes down to safety. It comes down to education, anything we can do to help the citizens and keep them safe.
You were rebutting, so the next question starts with Byron. Kind of along those lines about safe storage access, gun access is a significant factor often in suicides as well. As the sheriff of Kansas's most populous county, if you choose, you could be a voice for change when it comes to state laws regarding such things as maybe gun safety at home, safe storage locks, red flag laws such as that. What, if any, issues related to gun safety would you be willing to advocate for in Topeka? We'll start 60 seconds with Byron Roberson.
I would definitely be willing to advocate for red flag laws, because that is something that lets us know when someone shouldn't have a gun. There should be a waiting period. There is no good reason why a person should not have to wait a certain period of time until they are made sure that we have vetted them and made sure that they are able to have a gun. There are many things in place that we have that our mental health that is involved in that advocate for this, that they need to have a waiting period. They need to have time to make sure that this person should have a gun. And I'm not against people having guns, but I am about vetting and making sure people have the right to have the gun. And red flag laws is one of those ways that we can make sure that we keep our community safe with that.
And the question over to Doug Bedford, what, if any, issues related to gun safety would you be willing to advocate for in Topeka, again, as the sheriff of Kansas's most populous county?
Again, I am a strong proponent of the Second Amendment, and so I am not in favor of taking anyone's guns. I will not do that, and that's what we have to do. There has to be gun safety. Whenever you start enacting some of the laws, the danger that you get into is how are those laws being enforced? And it doesn't matter if you're talking guns, if you're talking drugs, whatever the case may be, you have to look at the overall picture and make sure that somebody cannot take advantage of somebody. Someone cannot violate somebody's Second Amendment right, their constitutional rights, if it comes down to whatever the case may be. And that's one of the biggest things that I would be concerned of in that regard. It will start with safety. It starts with education. It starts with getting out. It starts at a young age. We need to start at a young age whenever the kids are in elementary school and talk about the guns. And we need to then talk and do the same thing with drugs. Any of those issues that we can address at a young age and continue that education even through someone being an adult will only keep Johnson County safe.
We got several reader questions and comments regarding Johnson County's process for investigating officer or law enforcement involved shootings. Many of these readers express sentiments similar to this emailer who told the Post that they perceive the process as, in their words, too cozy with police. I will say the Sheriff's Office does not have a direct role in overseeing the Officer-Involved Critical Incident Team, or OCIT, but as one of the county's top law enforcement officials, your assessment of that process very well could matter in how investigations in the future are conducted. You may have weight about how or what, if any, changes would be made to that process. Do you think OSIT currently accomplishes its stated mission of conducting impartial and transparent investigations? Do you see the need for any changes or improvements to the process? We'll start with Doug Bedford, 60 seconds.
Anytime there's a family or there's anyone involved where they are working with the OSIT, there's been a tragedy involved. And so I feel for that family. I feel for the people that are involved. What I like about the OSIT team, which is the team that will come in and investigate it, one of the key things you need to do in any key investigation, especially where there's a shooting, is remove the agency that was involved. Because if you remove them, then hopefully that will remove the bias that may be, if there is any, in that investigation. We need to make sure that we have highly qualified investigators on this OSIT team. I was never on that team. I was a lieutenant over our investigations division at the sheriff's office, but as the undersheriff or any other role, I wasn't involved or on the team. Make sure that each one of the investigators on there are highly qualified, they have yearly training, and then if you look at the core principles that I want to run on is trust, teamwork, and transparency through my campaign, we can then make everything better and the citizens will trust the law enforcement with an OSIT team.
And I'll ask you a follow-up before I jump to Byron, Doug. Maybe describe in more detail how transparent you think these investigations should be. What type of information and investigative records do you think should be made available to the general public, as well as, and it's a difference, the families of people involved or shot and killed by law enforcement? I know they are certainly different from the general public, but maybe get more specific about how transparent you think these investigations should be. And that's for you first, and then, yeah, I'll ask these questions of Byron, too.
Okay. Well, one of the things, if you look at a body camera, I think that there should be a disclosure. You should be able to see that. And that should be done sooner than later. And that's going to have to be in the constraints, working with the district attorney's office, working in the constraints of Kansas law to make sure you can legally disclose or you can make that viewable by people. The family can probably see a lot more of it, but the general public. I think if you would do things like that, the transparency piece, what you're going to do is get more trust in law enforcement, what's taking place. And the reason why is because people can then say if the family, they can possibly get closure. The media, you know, because a lot of times as soon as people hear there's a shooting, then they say, oh my gosh, this person did this or this agency did that. That can maybe clear up any misconceptions that are out there. And so what you have to have, again, is proper training for the investigators and then the transparency of the investigation, get the reports done as quickly as possible so there's not a time drag or it's not dragging on for the family or for the entire investigation itself.
So the original question back to Byron Roberson now, do you think OSIT, again, Officer Involved Critical Incident Investigation Team, do you think that currently accomplishes its stated mission of conducting impartial and transparent investigations? Do you see the need for any changes or improvements to the process? Again, with the caveat, the Sheriff's Office doesn't necessarily directly oversee OSIT, but as the top law enforcement officer, what you say may have extra weight. 60 seconds.
So the OSIT is a very good organization. It's a very transparent organization. The investigators that are on OSIT are the best investigators in the county. They investigate major crimes. A lot of them are also a part of the Metro Squad investigative team that investigates murders, robberies, and everything else all over the Metro Kansas City area. They are the best investigators that we have. And it is impartial because it does not, wherever the incident occurs, that agency is excluded. Everyone else is brought in. I have a commander that is part of the OSIT. He is a very good commander. He is a very smart investigator, and that's what you have to have on that organization. Are there things that we can do better? Sure. We always can do things better. I've already collaborated with the KBI and talked to them about how we can do things better by maybe collaboration on training.
Again, the follow-up too that I asked Doug, how transparent should these investigations be? What type of information should be available, made available to the general public as well as the families of people involved in these incidents or shot and killed by law enforcement? I mean, I will say I do have to point out, and you've talked about this, but you yourself, when you were a member of the Prairie Village Police Department, you did fatally shoot a woman in 2010 as a member of the Prairie Village Police SWAT team. Of course, the investigation after that cleared you and the other officers involved. Does that experience lend any weight to how you think about this issue? And again, specifically, what should be made transparent and when during these investigations?
Yes, since you brought it up, I was involved in an officer-involved shooting in 2010. It is something that could happen to any police officer when we put on our badge and we put on our vest and our equipment every day. It's a reality. This is not something that I wanted to happen, but it is something that I was put in a situation where it was either my life or their life. So I will not apologize for that. I am sorry for that family, but that is a situation that I was put in with a person that had a serious mental illness. And that is something that we have to address as well. Mental illness. That is the large percentage of the persons that are involved in officer-involved shootings have mental illness. So it is a serious problem. And I do believe that there are some times that some videos should be released, but that is also sometimes out of our hands. A lot of times it is the district attorney or it is a higher court that is not allowing sometimes that video to be put out.
Involved with these types of investigations often are body camera footage. One questioner from the audience says current Kansas law considers body camera footage a criminal investigative record. Therefore, body camera footage is exempt from the Kansas Open Records Act and does not have to be released to the public. So oftentimes when the public does get access to that information or those records, it is often maybe after a lawsuit or because the agency did voluntarily release it. Do you agree with state statute? And we'll start with Byron on this one and then move to Doug. Do you agree with the state statute? Where do you stand on the release of body camera footage? When and how should it happen? And we'll start with Byron, 60 seconds.
I believe that body camera footage should be released as soon as possible if it is something that we are legally able to do. We have every police officer in Prairie Village has a body camera. When they have contact with someone, the body camera is on. It saves lives. It also protects the officer as much as it protects the person that they're encountering. So I do believe that for public transparency, for public trust, yes, we should release the body cam as soon as possible, but it is not an absolute. It is not every time that you're going to be able to release the body camera, and people have to understand that.
And the question to Doug Bedford as well, do you agree with state statute that shields often body camera footage? Where do you stand on the release of body camera footage? How and when should it happen during the course of such investigations?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think you have to look at what's allowed by Kansas law, and then you have to look and work in collaboration with the district attorney's office. A lot of times what needs to happen, while I was there as the undersheriff, then there was a shooting that took place. And what ultimately happened is we brought the family in and we allowed the family to view the video. And the reason why is the family needed closure. The family needed something. We were able to stop the video. They didn't see everything that took place, but there would always be the questions. Did the person really have a gun? Did the person really have a knife? What did they have? What led up to this? Was there life-saving measures after the incident took place? Sometimes the videos, the body cameras, or even an in-car video, they can give that family, they can give these community the closure that they need. That could even be for the officer that's involved. Because sometimes they need that peace of mind, and that way people would know, hey, this person didn't do something egregious. They actually did something that it was unfortunate, but it took place.
A question from the audience on a different topic. Did the Johnson County Sheriff's Office have a budget for investigating 2020 election fraud? Is or was that work justified? I will just note, it has been a years-long investigation into local election procedures led by Sheriff Calvin Hayden. Of course, we got a lot of questions about that for the primary. Hayden did lose that primary, so we got fewer questions about it. Still, several readers, it wasn't a joke, still several readers said they wanted to know what you plan to do with this investigation if elected. Is there a chance you will restart it, continue to spend county resources on the matter, or are you committed to ending it? Again, the original question from the audience, was that work justified? We give you a chance to expound on this. Doug Bedford, 60 seconds.
Well, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't at least look at the investigation to find out what needs to be done. What I was told, what the citizens of Johnson County were told, is there was 200 people complained. I don't know if that took place or not. I don't work at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office right now. And so the first thing that I would do is sit with the investigators. We would look at the evidence that's there and determine whether a crime took place. If we would need to call in the district attorney's office, if we need to call in Fred Sherman from the election commissioner of Johnson County, or even Scott Schwab, the Secretary of State to say, hey, this may not have been a crime, but maybe there's something that could happen, or through this investigation, it was discovered we can do something better. Because one of the biggest things that we want to have in Johnson County is secure elections. We want to have that in the United States. And so if something can be done, now the money that was spent on it, I don't know, and I won't know until I get in there as the sheriff. But if there's nothing there for this, then I'm going to close the investigation. But if I don't look at it, I think I'd be remiss in my duties.
And the question to Byron Roberson, readers want to know what you plan to do with this investigation if elected. It's paused now. Don't know if it's officially closed or not. Is there a chance you would restart it, or are you committed to ending it? 60 seconds.
I would not spend another dollar of the taxpayers' money on this case. We're about to elect the next president of the United States in 2024. I would see how much money is spent, and I would let the citizens know how much money our sheriff spent on this, because I think they want to know. But as far as tying up any time with the district attorney's office, I'm sure they don't want to. I'm sure the attorney general doesn't want to, and I'm sure no one else wants to, because that was a waste of time. If there was a case to be brought, they would have brought it years ago. So I see no reason to spend any more of the taxpayers' time and money.
Another topic, again from the audience, but also something I was planning to ask about. We'll start with Byron Roberson. Earlier this year, Sheriff Hayden ended a contract with the County Mental Health Center to provide services for inmates at the county jail in favor of a private contractor. County mental health officials and some county commissioners objected to that move, pointing to data that showed that inmates who have been able to access county mental health services in recent years did have lower rates of recidivism. So we did have a question about lowering recidivism in the county jail. The sheriff cast that move as one that would save money. If elected, will you choose to continue using the for-profit contractor for mental health services at the jail, or will you return services to the County Mental Health Center? We'll start with Byron first, 60 seconds.
So I started the first co-responder unit in Prairie Village Police Department, and as chief, I increased those numbers. That is a person that is a mental health professional that goes with our police officers to calls for service. And those are extremely important. They are extremely important in providing that continuity of care from the time an officer comes to contact with the person to when the person gets help afterward. Inside the jail, we have Johnson County Mental Health that was put out of the jail in June. We now have a for-profit company that is doing the same thing that one of the best, Johnson County Mental Health, one of the best organizations that we have for mental health in this region, is not inside the jail. It makes no sense. Continuity of care could not be better from having someone, a private sector on the inside of jail and Johnson County Mental Health on the outside of jail. You have to bring back, re-engage Johnson County Mental Health.
And a question to Doug Bedford. Would you choose to continue using for-profit contractors for mental health services at the jail, or would you return services to the County Mental Health Center?
One of the things that I mentioned early on, and I've said numerous times, is you have to have teamwork to get the job done. And that's teamwork with city police agencies, teamwork with county and state agencies. What was really good while I was there as the undersheriff with Johnson County Mental Health in the detention center, if an inmate was released on Sunday, on Monday, they could continue their care. Right now, I recently met with Tim DeWeese, the director of Johnson County Mental Health, and his answer to me was, I don't know. They don't know what kind of a relationship there is with the current agency or the current for-profit group that is in there and the mental health with Johnson County Mental Health. That's imperative. That's imperative. What you're going to do is recidivism. That's a tough word for me. But you're going to get the inmates that are released. If their care falls off, they have a very, very good chance of getting back into the criminal world again. We need to prevent that. Anything we can do to help a citizen in Johnson County or a citizen that has mental health issues and is in the detention center, we need to do it.
Just a couple more questions before we close. We did have a couple of questions regarding working with federal immigration officials. We had this question from the audience during the presidential campaign. Some candidates are talking about mass deportation of immigrants. What is your position on how to manage and implement such a presidential mandate if it were to come to pass, and you are Johnson County Sheriff? Are you legally required to follow that mandate? Another questioner asks, how would you work with ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement? So how would you work with federal immigration agents? Would you follow a mandate to mass deport individuals who are in the country illegally? We'll start with Doug Bedford, 60 seconds.
Well, one of the things with the sheriff and law enforcement as a whole is that we enforce the laws that are already on the books. And so we could always speculate and say, hey, what if this happened? What if that happened? What we will do is, I'm not going to be a lobbyist. I have no aspirations of being a career politician. I'm going to be the sheriff of Johnson County, and I will enforce the laws on the books. We need to work with the federal government. We need to work with ICE. Currently at the sheriff's office, if somebody is arrested and they were born in a foreign country, immigration would be contacted and then say, would you want to put a hold on this individual or not? And whenever that individual's case is satisfied in Johnson County, immigration would be contacted. They have 72 hours to come and pick up the inmate. If they don't pick up the inmate or the detainee, then they're going to be released. Otherwise, immigration will come and get them. You have to have a good working relationship with the federal government, with any of these agencies. Once again, it comes down to teamwork. We all want a common goal. Policing is easy. Keep people safe, keep the citizens safe.
Same question over to Byron Roberson. If you faced a mandate of mass deportation, how would you handle that as Johnson County Sheriff? The other question, how would you work with ICE? So maybe take both of those questions at once if you would. 60 seconds.
So I've read about it and seen a lot of it in the news about one of the candidates that wants to do a mass deportation. It's not constitutionally legal. I would not be a part of it. I would refuse to do that. That sounds like Nazi Germany to me. How are you going to even figure out who is legal and who is illegal? Are you going to go to door and find out if they're legal or not? It's impossible. Regulations, yes, we should have better regulations on how we vet people, how we get people processed, how we make them legalized citizens. Yes, we should do that, and I support that. But I do not support what is being proposed right now with just rounding people up. It's an impossibility. It's not what, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the facilities, we don't have anything to do what is proposed like that.
Final question before closing statements. It comes from the audience. It's a good question to close on before you give us your final remarks. Maybe it's a chance to get some rebuttal-worthy material out of the way. What is the biggest difference in your platforms and candidacies, aside from your party affiliation? Of course, Doug, Republican, Byron, Democrat. So this person notes your values and views seem to be very similar, though I've noted several differences in your conversation tonight. But the biggest difference between you and your opponent, Byron Roberson, go first, 60 seconds.
So the biggest difference between myself and my opponent is that I have sat in the chair. I've been the chief of police for 4 years. I've made those tough decisions. Those things have come to my desk, and I've made those tough decisions and went forward. I'm the captain of the ship. I give them a vision, I give them a direction, and we build together and we move in the right direction. There's a big difference between being the undersheriff and the deputy chief and the sheriff. There are two big differences. When something goes wrong, when the budget is over, they don't go to the undersheriff, they go to the sheriff. When something happens and something happens out in the public and your deputies are held accountable, they don't go to the undersheriff, they go to the sheriff. It's the same thing for the chief of police. The chief of police makes those decisions. I have made those decisions for the last 4 years and created a professional police department, and I can do the same at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office.
Question to Doug Bedford, what's the biggest difference between you and your opponent?
Well, I think I would agree to disagree. I have sat in the chair. I have 26 years at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office has over 700 employees, and I have managed that group. There's over 500 sworn at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, and I have managed that group. While I was there, it was a $90 million budget. And I believe I have sat through the meetings. I have sat through the meetings with the detention staff. The sheriff would typically go to Topeka. The sheriff would go to other events, and I would be there as the undersheriff, working with the executive staff, working from the deputies all the way up. For lack of better terms, I know where the light switches are in those buildings. There's 12 different divisions at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. I have worked in 10 of those divisions. I know what it takes. I know what it's like to work with the inmates in the jail. I know what it's like to patrol the rural areas where there's no street lights. I have done all of that stuff in the investigations division, the warrant division. I have been there, and I'm true and tested.
Closing statements, due to the coin flip before, Byron will go first on closing statements, so this is your last chance to say your final piece, both of you, so we'll start 60 seconds with Byron Roberson. Your closing statement.
So I have been the chief of police for the last 4 years. And being the chief of police, you have to have a level head. You have to be able to listen more than you talk. If you look at my webpage, you'll see people that have endorsed me. And I put those on there because they're important. It's people like John Douglas. It's people like Ellen Hansen, Steve Cox, Darrell Forte, and the governor of Kansas. Those are my endorsers. Those are people that are important. Those are people that have done the job. None of them have been my employees. None of them have worked for me. I believe that a good leader learns how to listen, and then they apply that to the mission. They apply that to their vision. I have been able to listen to what my people need, and my people are the people, as well as my employees, as well as the governing body. I have worked with all of them in order to make this Prairie Village Police Department a professional organization. We can do the same in Johnson County.
And Doug Bedford, your closing statement to round out this forum.
I've been endorsed by more than 140 military and retired law enforcement. A great percentage of those are from the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, to include Sheriff Frank Denning, Sheriff Curry Myers, there's a sheriff in Western Kansas, there's majors, captains, deputies, sergeants, all of those people that I have worked with for so many years. They know the leadership that I'm going to be bringing to the agency. What it comes down to, it's a little bit different between a sheriff's office and a police chief. The sheriff's office does answer to each and every one of you. I've done that role. I was the sheriff whenever Cal Hayden was out of town. I did it for 4.5 years as the undersheriff. That's what the job was. I knew my role, and that's what I did. The sheriff's office has over 700 employees that I managed. Again, a budget while I was there of $90 million. What has to happen is you look at the comparative. I've been there. I know where everything is. I know how to run the organization. Is right now a good time to try to have a learning curve for the position of sheriff? And I don't think it is.
We'll give them a round of applause for this forum tonight. And before everyone gets up, we are going to have a DA forum right after this. It's now a little bit past 7. We wanted to start at 7. That went a little bit long. That's fine. We're going to aim to start at 7:05. But please, if you want to get up and talk a little bit, you can do that. If you're going to leave, please exit with alacrity. If you're going to stay, please kind of stay in the same area because we are going to try to restart at 7:05. Thank you so much.